Hi, I'm Andre Hausberger, and I'm here with Patrick Wright from STP Ventures. And what just happened, every time I speak to Patrick, there's a lot of interesting stories. And last time I said, why don't you just hit the record button and let everybody take part of those interesting stories? So Patrick.
Yes, sir. How you doing,
One
Andre?
of those stories you told me, a juicy story where you definitely saved, I would say, a lot of lives. Do you want me to tell me more about it?
Yeah, lives might be dramatic, but possibly. Yeah, very, very possibly. We had an engagement towards the beginning of this year from a hospital, a U.S.-based hospital, fairly large in size, 250 beds. That's a fairly large facility. They approached us with kind of a unique use case. They had a unique need. So this hospital is very well funded, and they are also very tech forward. They actually try to do better than just what compliance tells them, what best practices tells them, and I cannot applaud them more for that. So the use case they came to us, they have an annual red teaming exercise that includes a full penetration test on their network, an assessment from hackers, things like that, cybersecurity professionals. But they wanted greater and more frequent visibility into their critical infrastructure. That's going to be 3 subnets for them. They had 3 subnets that ruled the roost for critical infrastructure. So this is not an engagement for the entire network. It was a very, very targeted segment of the entire network. In healthcare, you sometimes have to pick and choose where your alerts, where your threats are going to come from, and really where your real risk is. In a hospital, your risk is in those servers that have databases that are running life-saving machinery or patient records that need to be referenced, medical information, all drug information, prescriptions, all sorts of stuff that doctors need. They need to treat. They need to be able to see X-rays that are being taken. All of that stuff. And so that's what this particular engagement was for. They came to us with a need for greater frequency and greater visibility in their testing.
So now you have us on the hook. I assume if this is a juicy story and they have annual pen tests, that you found nothing, right?
Oh yeah, perfectly clear. I can't say it with a straight face. Okay, so no, there is no such thing as a clean pen test report. 18 years I've been doing this. I haven't seen one yet, not even here at my own home. There's no such thing as an actually secure environment. There's just a hardened environment. So in this case, we actually deployed our hybrid monthly pen testing solution. We automate the front end when all the utilities run, then we bring in the human pen testers, the ethical hackers, certified ethical hackers on the back end to work their magic. And by automating that front end, that lets us drop the price down pretty low, and so we can do monthly testing instead of annual testing, because annual testing, honestly, it's never been sufficient. It will never be sufficient. It should never be recommended. It has no place anywhere. Minimally, we should be doing quarterly testing. So we're doing monthly here, and I applaud the hospital for that. The very first test that we ran, Andre, and this was even before our personnel got involved, we found a really, really gnarly exploit in the network that is EternalBlue. So for those of you that might be listening to this who have been in the security world for a little while, EternalBlue is part of the CIA hacking utility toolbox, the hacking toolbox that the agency used back in 16 or 17, 2016, 2017. And when their toolbox got leaked to the world, EternalBlue was one of the primary utilities that they used to crack infrastructures in companies all over the world, governments, militaries. I'm sure EternalBlue has been around the world 10 times. And we found it right there loud and proud in this hospital network. There's some really topical major concerns of that, in that how in the world did an exploit from 2016, 2017 in 2024 wind up in a hospital network? And why was the hospital not aware that it was there? Those are some pretty worrying concerns, not on behalf of the hospital. The hospital has plenty of money. They have insurance. They're going to be fine. As security practitioners, as ethical hackers and pen testers, we're worried about the patients. We have to preserve patient care, and especially emergent patient care.
I definitely want to go there, Patrick. I want to know
Yeah.
what could be the consequences of leaving EternalBlue on there. But before we go there, I have a question. I assume you don't know the answer, but
All right, hit me.
they had yearly pen tests, right? And I
Yes,
assume
sir.
these are pen tests that cost anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000.
They were six-figure engagements every year.
What could be the reason that these pen tests didn't discover the
Yeah,
EternalBlue?
sure. So we are not the firm that was conducting the annual red teaming exercise. We came in to supplement that practice. So being in that position, I don't have access to the reports from the other firm, and the hospital did not furnish those to us. So there's a couple of scenarios that plausibly could have played out. One is EternalBlue showed up between the last pen test and when we pen tested. There was about a 90-day period there between the conclusion of the red team exercise and when we started pen testing. So it's possible. Possible. I don't know that I would call it plausible, but it is possible that EternalBlue was injected into the environment after the pen test, which is concerning for a lot of reasons, because if we had not come onto the scene, this super concerning, very bad keys to the kingdom exploit would have existed in this environment for the better part of 8 to 11 months before it was addressed. The other scenario, and I hate to say this, but it is a very plausible scenario, is that the last pen test did catch EternalBlue and it made the report, and the hospital just didn't mitigate the exploit. That is very possible. That's why when we're doing a red team engagement, ethical hacking, pen testing, whatever it is, if we find something like EternalBlue, 5 minutes after our senior director of cybersecurity, Marshall, and I kind of debriefed on the whole thing, I had texted the IT director, I had called the IT director, and I had emailed the IT director with priority messages, because that's how bad EternalBlue is. That's not something you can sleep on. That's an environment killer.
And now let's go there. Why you can't sleep on it? What could have been the
Yeah, sure.
consequences?
You can look at any of the other healthcare hacks. You can take a look at Ascension Healthcare from a few months ago. It crippled 140 some odd hospitals that had to immediately go back to paper practices. So I can't imagine having Ascension Healthcare literally told their patients to write down their prescription numbers and bring them into the emergency room. So I don't know about the rest of the world, but here in the States, going to the emergency room is not a good experience on a good day. There's nothing fun about going to the ER. Um, Going to the ER when the computers aren't working, patient records aren't accessible, doctors can't access your x-rays, they have no clue what your mental health history is, they don't know if you have a history of violence, they don't know if you have a history of self-harm, they don't know anything about you. You are a ghost to that medical provider. That's a problem. That's a
That's a
very
huge
big
issue,
problem.
yes.
Just like in cybersecurity, we live and die by the information we have. In the healthcare world is the same. They live and die by the information they have, but more importantly, the information they can access. And so with an exploit like EternalBlue, any adversary could have acted, taken advantage of EternalBlue. We were able to compromise the entire domain at this hospital in a matter of hours by leveraging EternalBlue. More than 80% of the devices on the critical infrastructure subnets were compromised using that exploit.
Wow, very
That's
interesting
bad.
story. There's another follow-up question I have.
Yes, sir.
When you do an annual pen test,
Yeah.
how long is the report for a company like this, for a hospital with 200 staff?
Oh boy, easily over 100 pages. Easily, it's going to be
So
over 100
this
pages.
might be a reason how they might have overlooked.
Yeah, it could have. It's called threat fatigue in the security industry. It is extraordinarily easy for a team of IT professionals or even security professionals like us to just wear out. You do an annual exercise, a pen test, a red team, whatever it is, and you have an entire year's worth of vulnerabilities and environment changes and exploits dumped on your team all at once. And it's very easy for things to get lost. It's easy for maybe maybe the organization starts remediating, but then something squeakier, the squeaky wheel always gets the grease. Something more visible comes along and remediation gets pushed to the back burner. And as soon as you put remediation on the back burner, you will never come back to it.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So for me as a listener, that kind of tells you why it's good to have monthly reports, right? Because then every month you can start something new.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have the team in place, there is also an offering that you have, which is remediation included, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So pen testing companies traditionally, conventionally, don't really like to sell remediation services as well. Remediation more goes into the realm of MSPs and MSSPs, whereas pen testers just want to come in, break your stuff, give you a report, pat you on the head, and peace out. That's it's what they're good at. They're chasing the invoices. I'm not hating. It is what it is. But we, as an ethical hacking firm and pen testing company, we encourage our clients to farm out their remediation, at least critical remediation, to us. We have a team of certified ethical hackers. The company itself has been around for 15 years. We've been doing cybersecurity since before we called it cybersecurity. It's important to make sure that you remediate the results on the back end of a test. Compliance typically just tells these organizations, these hospitals, medical offices, medical holding groups, okay, well, you have to do a pen test. But they fall short of saying, and then you have to remediate the results of that pen test. And that fuels the old adage in cybersecurity, Andre, that compliance is not security. And honestly,
Fantastic.
Compliance is kind of insanity.
When we last spoke, Patrick, there was one thing that caught my attention. And you told me that you work with a lot of MSPs, MSP from all sizes. So the 2-man MSP to the 50-man MSP.
Yeah, we love working with MSPs. We used to be an MSP in the early days of the company.
Tell me about that special relationship you have and what you offer to MSPs.
Sure. So MSPs are the relationship holders in the IT world. Every organization has to have some level of break fix support and infrastructure management. Servers do not manage themselves, firewalls and switches do not configure themselves, and technology does not fix itself. These are unalienable truths about information technology. So we lived as an MSP for 5 or 6 years in the early stages of the company, and then we transitioned to an ethical hacking firm. We understand what MSPs are going through. We know what it's like to reach for new revenue verticals, but also get hit with imposter syndrome a little bit, because an MSP, a managed services provider, is not a cybersecurity or security engineer. Yeah, they know of it just by nature of their business, but what they really need is someone that understands their pain points, understands the business model to come in and enable them to sell these services. And by building those relationships with MSPs, here's what we do. We allow the world to pen test more, and we allow the world to fix more vulnerabilities. And the relationship holders, they keep the relationship. I don't want the relationship. I want the network. I want the vulnerabilities. I want to give you the report. I want to fix it for you. I don't want the relationship. That's for the MSPs. That's for the managed services providers. That's what they do. So we come in with a turnkey solution like our hybrid monthly pen testing, and with the stroke of a pen, this MSP can now have the complete, fully featured ethical hacking services of a 15-year American firm. And that's pretty powerful.
And you do it completely behind the scenes, right? So
that's right.
Most of the end clients never know you exist, right?
That's correct. Yes, sir. So we prefer white label agreements. The way our firm is set up, we've never been super loud on the market. We've always just been super good. And so I don't need to have my logo slapped on everything that we do. It is genuinely our goal to have people find more vulnerabilities, which is pen testing, and to have people fix more vulnerabilities, which is remediation. The avenue we take to reach that goal concerns us way less than actually achieving the goal. But thankfully, we have leveraged our MSP program to expand into the Middle East, into Latin America. We're expanding into Canada. We're all over the States. It seems like the market is pretty primed for something like this. Cybersecurity needs to be easier. It needs to be more straightforward, and it definitely needs to be more affordable.
Fantastic, Patrick. Thank you. That sounds really interesting. One last, because I think it didn't come across as much, but the pricing of a yearly pen test is extremely expensive, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On
Why
average.
why is that so expensive?
Okay, so I'll pull the curtain back from the industry a little bit for you. I think that's going to be the best way to articulate why it's so expensive. So I'll speak to network and infrastructure testing, not mobile app and code testing. When you go to test a network, pen test a network, 9 times out of 10, your pen tester, your ethical hacker, is going to show up, open the laptop that has all the fun goodies, Kali Linux, all the fun utilities. They're going to plug into your network core, and they're going to start running utilities. Those utilities can take days and days and days to run, and it's going to be a lot of different utilities. It's going to be open source, it's going to be closed source, it's just going to be a whole wide array of different things. And what your pen tester is doing is they're doing reconnaissance on the network. They're enumerating or defining the network, finding everything, the technologies that are there, and those utilities are also doing the baseline and the moderate level work of testing every device that it can find for known exploits and vulnerabilities. So during that process, your pen tester is, maybe they have some administrative work, clerical work to do, setting up Excel sheets and things. But for the most part, they're just waiting on the utilities to run. And while they wait on this utility to run, they're racking up very, very expensive billable time. Very expensive billable time. So that generates, I believe the last time I looked, Andre, it was $30,000 to $70,000 was the average cost for a pen test. That's prohibitively expensive for many organizations. If it's not prohibitively expensive, it costs so much to meet ISO 27001 or SOC 2 compliance, or here in the States, maybe NIST 800-171/CMMC, that the rest of the security posture actually suffers because the company had to dump so much money into the pen test. And that's what makes it so expensive. The reason we're able to lower that cost is we automate that utility driven front end. We just automate it. It's 2024. There's no reason for you to have a pen tester clicking buttons and opening exes and running Linux commands manually. There is no reason for it at all. So we injected some intelligence and some automation and some outside the box thinking into the equation, and thankfully it's fleshing out very well. We're finding things that are being missed by some of the larger providers. We're very focused and dialed in right now.
Fantastic. Very, very interesting story. And I know, as you said, you find stuff others don't find. And at the end of the automated process, there is a real hacker trying to breach the environment, right?
That's it. And that's the key right there. An automated pen test, its efficacy could be questioned. It really could. I could argue for or against a purely automated test, which is why we went with the hybrid model. We perform the automated test, but then we bring in the human, and the human being, their experience, their ingenuity, their training, the best practices, their documented testing methodology, their credentials, everything plays in to finding the exploits that are going to be used against you to breach your organization.
And now from a non-hacker to a hacker, a question, and that's the last question. Why do what you're doing? I mean, you could go and find some crypto somewhere.
Sure.
From you could steal from a criminal, right?
What a great question. What a great question. You're absolutely right. Well, in the States we can. It's actually illegal for us to go on a counteroffensive, a strategic rush forward. So I co-founded this company in 2009. In my personal life, one of my biggest pet peeves is bullies. I do not tolerate bullying from myself, from my family, from my friends, from my coworkers, from my colleagues, from anybody. And cyber criminals are nothing but bullies. It's all they are. And I don't tolerate bullies in my professional life either. And by diving into cybersecurity, becoming going from MSP to ethical hacking firm, what I've found is myself and my team have so many opportunities to stop bullying. And getting punched in the nose, okay, that's one form of bullying. It sucks, it hurts, nobody likes it. You're going to bleed, sure, but you're going to be okay. Whereas with cyber criminals, their bullying takes away people's livelihoods. It shuts down companies with hundreds, thousands of employees. You're ruining lives like this. And so this is not just marketing speak here. We genuinely care about that happening, and we genuinely want to stop it from happening. And we take a very pragmatic approach to cybersecurity, pen testing, and hacking. We focus on the things that work, and we're not going to give you the fluffy stuff that doesn't work.
Awesome, Patrick. Thank you so much. I applaud
Yes,
you
sir.
for that.
Thanks very much, Andre.
Yeah. Bye.